say the invocation. Would somebody here to volunteer to say the invocation? Say prayer for us? Good. Excellent. Thank you.
Here or there? You can hear me.
Yeah, not here.
Be quiet. Well, God, thank you for today. Thank you for loving us, bringing us together to build our city. Lord, just continue to guide us and direct us in all that you do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
That drum makes me pledge allegiance.
And to the republic for which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and defense is mine. I pledge allegiance to you, and as one Savior, under God, one indivisible.
Thanks so much. Announcements. Thanks. We have posted a date for a police appreciation picnic, Saturday, September 14th, from 11 to 1 over here at Finzala Park. I'd like to invite everybody to congratulate our chief and thank our fine officers. Anybody wants to contribute and help put that event together? We'd also like to give gift baskets for the police officers. Contact Laurie, I guess, if you want to get involved.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And what time?
11 to 1 on Saturday the 14th. We're going to have hot dogs and activities for kids. I think Bobby might play. I'll talk to you. Okay. Public comments. There's 1, 2, 5 people signed up, starting with Mr. Welch.
Okay.
You're the first.
Battery's dead.
Battery's dead.
That one right there. More. There you go. What color's that? Green?
One blue, and then now turned off.
We just talk loud.
Go ahead and talk loud.
I'm Kenneth Welch. I'm not a resident of Blanco, but I do live in the county and I consider Blanco my home. In the last meeting, Mayor Arnold asked that I investigate his legal statement, not the city administrator, is the official budget officer for the city. At the time, I felt it was a childish discussion, not worthy of the city council's time. However, I have researched it, and with a few files, few fits and starts, and Gary Berger's help, I was able to find the Attorney General's opinion that clarifies the issue. The mayor is indeed the official budget officer. However, neither the mayor or the city administrator owns the budget. It is a city budget. Document is presented to the city council, which may make as many changes as they deem appropriate, and the council, and only the council, must approve the budget. Therefore, I believe my intuition was correct. This is a silly argument. City administrator and the staff have prepared the budget in spreadsheet form for many years with input from the mayor, the city council, department heads, and the public and local meetings. The city is in the black as a result of this process last year. I don't see any value in arguing over who is the owner of the process. The city would be better off if all involved would just agree to work through the annual budget process for the good of the city. Also last month, I mentioned my opposition to the use of certificates of obligation. My view has not changed. I believe the residents should be engaged in all financing arrangements. I understand the 2024 series COs to be discussed today comes with a commitment from the Texas Water Board to rebate some of the costs that would otherwise flow to the city. I'm also aware that this has been discussed many times in the council meetings. However, the CO discussed last meeting is an example of a misuse of COs. You authorized your financial advisor to proceed with the search for best interest rate. The problem with that is you have no project list that can be agreed upon. Since seeking the money, then deciding how to spend it is absolutely backward. My primary objection is that this city has huge capital improvements that must be addressed in the future. A long-term capital improvement plan should be put in place and the council should work toward implementing the plan, including a funding approach. The plan should be presented to the public with a request to support a bond issue so that they can understand the long-term approach and see the progress as it unfolds. Lastly, the members of TPAC are dedicated, hardworking individuals and have the best interest of Blanco in mind. It is an unbiased group. Review applications and the current members that begin apply. However, your motion last month indicated that you would review the purpose of the committee. Even though you've received several applications, I would appreciate discussion
Thank you, Ken.
on your expectations of what purpose the committee would be going forward.
You must be Father Kyle. We prayed, but thanks for coming.
My apologies.
That's okay.
Highway committee.
We'll catch you next month.
Absolutely. Okay.
Welcome to Blanco.
Thank you very much.
David Smith.
Okay, David's asked if I'd go first. Is that all right, Mayor?
Well, sure.
All right, thanks. My name is Mike Smith. I'm a member, one member of the council, and I'd like to thank council for your service and your dedication. I have a full understanding of the time and commitment it takes, and I'd like to address 2 agenda items. First item I'd like to address is old business item number 2, appointments and reappointments to our TPAC committee. As a citizen, I appreciate the current members for their time and effort on this committee. They have done an excellent job of fulfilling their tasks. I also thank everyone for submitting an application to help this committee going forward. Continuity during the reorganization is critical. I strongly urge council to give consideration due and reappoint the existing members that are willing to continue to help our community, along with full consideration to the prospective new members. In my opinion, TPAC is dealing with some of the most critical issues Blanco will face in this century. The second item I'd like to address is dismissal, it's executive session, item number 6, dismissal of city administrator. I do believe the city of Blanco requires the services of a trained and competent city administrator. We've made monumental progress since Mr. Escovy came on board. As a former council member, I have worked with Warren Escovy longer than anyone currently sitting on council. I was involved in the interview and selection of Mr. Escovy for his position. During his performance reviews, I felt he addressed any areas of performance I found deficient. Mr. Escovy, the city administrator, is in a unique situation. Typically, an employee has 1 supervisor. The city administrator in Blanco has 6. He has to respond to directives from all 6 council members. For me, this would not be an easy task. I have never seen calls for his dismissal. Thank you for your time.
David Smith. Y'all Ken?
No, they're neighbors. David Smith, I'm a city resident here. I have 2 young boys and my wife. I practice dermatology in the area, so if anybody needs that, just holler at me. But I'm here to address the council on a few things. I know some of y'all know me. Some of you are neighbors. I know some people's mother and some of their grandkids too. Grandmother's grandkids anyways. I have 2 concerns here today. One of them, which is the 281 task force that was established back in 2022 with Mayor Lumpy, and thank her for establishing that. I've seen great progress with that and the current leadership that has been appointed by City Council. And I would urge you guys to continue that continuity because I feel like there's a good leader at the helm and there's good leadership continuing at the helm. So I would urge you to consider that and moving forward because it is going to be, as Mike said, probably something of a century kind of deal. So the second thing on it is in regards to the city administrator. As many of you know, we've had long-term issues with finding people and retaining people in the city of Blanco for decades. And so it's nice to see someone that's actually doing the work of the people by the direction of the city council. And I feel like he's done a good job. Having been the planning and zoning chairman commissioner, I've worked with different city administrators and I feel like he's doing a good job. I think he should continue to do a good job as is. Continuity is important. just the same in the city administration. Otherwise, things fall through the cracks. And I've seen it happen, having lived here for many years. And I don't want that to happen again, because it throws a wrench in everything. I think he's doing a good job, so I'd consider that. And remember, you guys are in charge.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jay Palmer.
Mayor, city council members, pardon me for my speed reading. I don't have enough time to commit this to memory. I came to you today as a city taxpayer and a developer within the city as well as the city ETJ. I've been involved in the city of Blanco for the past 4 administrations. When I got here, there was no administrator. The current mayor at that time was working full-time trying to run the city. When that proved to be too much and with difficulty of a former city council, she resigned. No one apparently wanted her job, and the city simply elevated someone that was neither qualified nor even eligible to take on the job of running this city. The city is now apparently on the verge of committing to $3.39 million for Texas Water Development Board debt, as well as another $2.5 million of COs. And I can't even begin to think that you're considering changing city administrators or letting Warren Escoffier, a very competent, very professional gentleman, leave in the middle of this turmoil. I can't imagine what it does to your bond rate. I've worked with city managers, city administrators, mayors, city council members over the last 40 years. I have not agreed with everything that Warren and I have had to work through for the past few years. I will say, however, that he has been fair to me. He has played by the book in all situations, abiding by the rules at the same time. And he has not tried to obstruct progress that anyone seems to be trying to bring to the city of Blanco. I cannot admit that that's the case for everyone else in this room. If Warren appears to be an impediment to various things that some in this city hope to accomplish, maybe you should ask yourself, are those the type of things that this council needs to be doing? Warren serves as a guardrail in the city to prevent inexperienced people from hitting this council off the side of a cliff. Tim Tuggy, I might add, someone else I've not always seen eye to eye with, serves as another guardrail to keep this council on the straight and narrow. Likewise, attempts have been made to remove him as well. This council should not be run as a dictatorship. Whenever someone disagrees with the way others may feel or the direction others may wish to take, the first thing on the following agenda is to have them removed, just such as the transportation committee members. And I also hear that there's a movement to rescind a letter to TxDOT that was suggested by previous city council members. The city has entirely too much at stake at this present time to be playing games with Warren Escoffier. I'm familiar with bullies, those that send council members into the city administrator's office and threaten bodily harm if they didn't resign. It's just the kind of council we want running this city. Thank you for your time.
Matt Hurd.
It still doesn't work. My name is Matt Hurd, and I'm addressing the issue that I believe will be on the executive session this evening. As a resident and taxpaying citizen of Blanco, I've watched city council for about the last 39 years. I've been pleased to see the professional guidance given to the council by the city administrator these past few years. The city administrator, he attends and gives professional guidance to the Planning and Zoning Committee, Capital Improvements Committee, Historical Preservation Committee, Streetscape Committee, Transportation Committees, and various other committees. And he also seems time to make city council meetings. How many of the city council members would be able to make these meetings during the process of a month? I know the city council, y'all have careers too, and your time is limited. Some of y'all have businesses that take you out of town, some of you take you out of state. So you have to have a city councilman here, a city administrator here to help guide it. Cities need professional help. People like attorneys, auditors, even Infomart. But especially you need city administrators. Blanco needs professionals to lead us. Even our neighbors, our neighboring cities have professional city managers to guide their city. The talk of professional staff members being fired or disbarred doesn't do any good at all for Blanco. Just the mere discussion about terminating any of the staff has a direct impact on your bond rating. And I think y'all are looking at that too. As a taxpaying citizen, I want to make sure that I get water. I want to make sure that my commode works. And I want to make sure that I know that professionals are guiding the city council to do the right thing that's the best thing for Blanco. Maybe you don't like it, maybe you do like it. But right now, you've got a good professional city administrator working for the city. And so I'm begging, don't make any changes that's gonna hurt Blanco. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, staff presentations, Andreski, you're up.
Switch. See that works. I don't have the batteries. Can you put
It's
the
number
presentation?
1.
Should we do the bottom?
PowerPoint.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, residents. My report, let's go to second page here. Great. So Infomark's been doing some pothole filling near the high school today. And then starting tomorrow, as you remember, council had approved to hire Darrell Wagner to start filling potholes in tomorrow. So they will start on Mesquite Street and then move from there. Damon's providing with a map, so I'll send you guys that map once we get out of this meeting. But second, okay, so it's not a meter audit update. It's actually the meters are being placed in. Started yesterday. As you know, it's the PSI meters, but the company's name is Ferguson. They'll be coming in, doing meters for the next probably few weeks. The whole process, intensive process, takes a couple of months. There's going to be callbacks and people coming back and forth. But the actual project limits is at the end of the year, but I expect most of these meters to have been placed in the next month or so.
Warren, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I interrupt you. Is that what the guys are doing when they're digging into the yards? I've had a couple of people ask.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you see a big Vector machine sucking around the meter box, they're cleaning it out so they can do the work on.
Okay.
They're putting new meter boxes in and new lids and that's
Yeah,
all.
there shouldn't be any missing meter boxes with missing lids anymore. And so we're fixing all the broken ones and be good as new.
Will be. There have been a lot of discussion online, and I think there's been some confusion about the different grants that we have. So I'm going to start with the first grant, we got a TDA grant 2020. And on top of it, it gets complicated. On top of it, they also got generators with it. With a later grant, but this lift station is fully operational. There's a few little things they're doing to it, but it's operational now, and that's the new lift station that you now can see. So that's from the Texas that's from the Agriculture Department, the TDA. Next slide. So tonight, we're actually going to be closing on the $3.9 million, and I'm going to explain it a little bit. It's a drinking water state revolving fund done by Texas Water Development Board, and that actually is $3.9 million total, because there's a $512,000 grant that's for green money, so that's basically it's free, and then the remaining of that is the remaining request, which is the $3.4 million. The reason why there's been some question about it is originally the entire project was 3.4, and they got up since it took 3 years to get it approved. We had to use more money to do the 3 projects. Principally, the 3 projects right now, and the third one we might look at doing something different. But right now, 3 projects per this request was, and this was done at the start of 2021, was the 9th Street waterline replacement, Cielo waterline replacement, and the Palomino waterline replacement. And we're going to work with those folks to make sure that this goes smoothly. Okay, certificates of obligation. So I know there's been some questions about that as well. and what that is versus the other. So last month, council, we brought to council, a $1.5 million request with some ideas of things that we would actually do. But right now, the council asked for 2.5 with only one project fully identified with the idea that we can identify other projects. The project that will be on this that has been identified is paying for the filter to waste system. So the new water plant can be complete in the next, 12 months to 14 months. Next, okay, let's go back. So the other thing I really want to mention is there's been a lot of discussion about what the CNET committee is doing, and what they're going to be doing right now is at the next meeting, they will be discussing the sewer system and what the needs for the city are for sewer. There's only so much that we can do on our end as the experts at CMAC, people that have been engineers or surveyors or farmers, different people that understand some of this stuff more than the rest of us that look at this and then make recommendations to council. So that's at the next CMAC meeting, they'll be discussing. Questions of staff?
I have a question, or just some clarifications. I understand the larger one that you guys have been working on since 2021.
Yes, sir.
And that's finally approved. On the added one that we talked about recently, there's been some concern, obviously, in the community. There's been some comments that we have saddled our residents with debt that they're trying to show will be paying off, et cetera, et cetera. So a couple of clarifications. When they say certificate of obligation, one, we haven't borrowed any money yet. And we only are obligated to pay back the money we do borrow.
Yes.
Is it fair to consider this as many growing businesses or cities as well in need, they need a credit line? Isn't this similar to a credit line? We've got available money we can borrow if we choose to. We're not obligated to borrow it. Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement to say that if we don't use all of it, we won't use all of it.
Or if we don't use any of it. For example, we're also weighing the wisdom of selling a city-owned property that's outside of the city. And that's already up for discussion. If we transfer that asset into the bank, for example, to make an asset transfer, then perhaps we would need to borrow less. Is that a fair statement?
If that's what council decides, sure.
Okay, just wanted to clarify, certainly for the citizens, we have not borrowed the money. And frankly, personally, I consider it as a business credit line. Anybody who's tried to grow a business, they know they have to have access to it. It's okay.
Yeah, if we had sufficient reserves, we wouldn't need to do that. We don't have reserves to be able to handle things like when we need to do the variable speed pumps, or when we things come up that are necessary and timely. We don't have a way to do that, but that's one thing.
So how I would answer that, Mayor, is that capital projects usually, basically you take loans, do interest and sinking. It is true that we have more in the enterprise fund. You could take care of having to buy a piece of equipment or something like that. But usually a capital project, you're going to actually take a 25 or 30 year net out.
And not a penny of it, even if it is approved and is available, can be spent without it being posted, discussed, debated, public comment, and voted on.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
So there's nobody can just go, you do this without going through the whole process.
No, there's not. Even though we haven't identified it, we'll have to identify it before we start projects. Yeah. Has to be approved.
Thank you.
One more comment and clarification, I guess, for those that have been paying attention to this is the sense of urgency that is mentioned, obviously, in the rules for that. The urgency in my mind is getting the water plant fixed. It's been stalled for years. And the campaign to, obviously, if we go much further than that, I would consider putting it out to bond, but I would hate to see, personally, I would hate to see that delay, that water plant delayed while we go through that process when we have access to this credit line right now.
And we've been working on, I've been told, I wasn't here since 2020 on the water plant. So we do have to at some point get this completed in the bond.
Thank you.
What about the sewer line going to Tiger Car Wash LLC? Is that in the 2.5?
Well,
2024.
That is if you wanted to.
Is that, okay,
Yeah,
I thought that was.
So
It's within the parameters, but it has been approved.
So it's within the parameters,
Yeah.
and originally when we
No, it's
looked at
not.
the 1.5, we had, why don't you,
So go ahead. I just.
okay, so the answer is this. It was intended to be in that you have not chosen as a council to do it yet.
What he said.
What he said.
Okay.
Before you sit down, a couple last things. First of all, Warren, I acknowledge I've had some regrettable communication. I take responsibility for that. And, I will take every reasonable effort to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. Get through this, but I also want to mention one more thing that, not a huge deal. Mayor and I had asked for tablets last year during the budget process because we would like to be able to access our packets on a tablet so that the printout doesn't have to be done. I hate to bring this up right here, but I've been asking for it since last year. Is there a chance that the city might be able to give me a cheap tablet so that I don't have to memorize 130 pages of information? I don't have a smartphone. I don't have a tablet. And I forego $2,400 in salary to do this job. Is there a chance that the city might be able to give me a tablet so that I can have my tablet?
Yes, yeah, we can do that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I bet.
That's a nice thing. I'm sorry for my communication.
I accept your apology. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Dana, come on down.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate y'all letting me be here today. I've kind of just followed suit to what the previous financial director had done. She was doing the financials as a quarter report. It would be my preference to do it monthly, to keep y'all to where it were a little bit closer. So these financials are April through June of 2024. This was prior to me, so forgive me. And the things that kind of stood out for me were on, let's see, and I made a note of that on the enterprise fund. We carried a huge deficit of our expenses over what we've been budgeted for, but there was funds that were revenued in 2022, 2023 that were not brought into the budget numbers. So this is just a budget amendment to amend those because the funds were there. They just weren't budgeted for that. So the funds weren't spent until this year. So we just will make those adjustments at the September meeting to rectify those, where that's at in there. And then the only other thing that I noticed was a little bit the hotel motel. I noticed that it was over a little bit in the expenses where I'm there, sorry for telling that.
No, it's fine. Keep talking. I'll keep up.
The Chamber of Commerce came and asked for assistance with the eclipse during the eclipse, and so that was the overage there. So we'll make those investments in the as a budget amendment next.
I know you've been catching a lot of things. What are some of the, I know you've been cleaning up a lot of stuff. What are some of the things you've found?
Oh, just working on the budget, I found things like there were some things that were should have been a liability that were an expense to the city because I noticed that we budgeted for those items. And they weren't expenses to the city. They were for the employees or, something that was an in and out that should have been under a liability. Some of the other things that I found was just the error in the, moving the money over. And I think most of the, some of that stuff is just, some of it may be oversights, and it's just when you get to moving, from the budget to audit to financials to looking at budget sheets, and but also the transition of a new software program is always a huge challenge, especially the way I understand it. There were 17 bank accounts prior to 2022. And taking that transition to eliminate that and then pushing it into a new, integrating into a new software program is not, but it takes probably a full year to kind of overcome all those challenges. There were, I mean, and I don't want to, it's not a fault of anybody. I mean, it's human error. I mean, and we all make mistakes, but there should be, I mean, there were two people in that office that were supposed to be accounting for each other. Auditors prefer for there to be two people, your checks and balances. When you're limited on staff, you can do your check and balances with city secretary and the finance director or the city administrator. I mean, there are other people that you can account for to do the checks and balances as well that will suffice an auditor coming in and doing your audit. Having a top-notch auditor is, I mean, you need to have a top-notch auditor because they're going to be the ones that find those things that you can't, that don't always come out. So I know that ours is pretty pricey, but it's definitely worth the cost.
I do like the monthly
Thank you.
financials, if you do that, and if we could also add in a year-to-date budget column as well,
Oh, there.
to do more than just the percentages.
Yeah.
If we could do that, that would be
I
very
appreciate
helpful. And then the other question, so on the general fund, there's a big variance on the non-departmental line number 6. Looks like we've already spent more than we budgeted for the full year on that line, so curious.
I'm gonna have to find out and
What
get
that
back
is.
with you. Yeah, I'll look at it tomorrow and make sure y'all let you know what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
You got it.
All right, Chief Thornhill.
Ladies, gentlemen of the council, y'all have already seen my numbers for the month. As you can see, our calls for service are up. Our traffic is up again. On another note, as far as traffic goes, tomorrow's the start of the new school year, and I have issued a directive for zero tolerance violations in the school zones. In other words, if you get stopped for a traffic violation in a school zone at an active school zone time, you can receive a citation. In addition to that, I also need to bring it to the council's attention that we passed our annual audit from the Texas Police Chief Association for our best practices. Even with the setbacks that we've had, we still managed to stay within parameters. In addition, there's one more thing. I'm working with the county judge right now, or the city is working with the county judge, and we have sponsored former Fire Chief Matt McMain to the police academy, where he will become our new county fire marshal. So y'all just need to know about that as well.
Is he leaving his current position to do that, or is he
Yes.
just add-on? Okay.
Well, he was doing fire inspections.
Yeah.
But this will put him in the law enforcement category, so he can actually enforce them instead of calling upon either a city officer or a county officer. All right,
A little bit more. You got your report in front of you? Just go ahead
Yes,
and
sir.
refer to it. I did notice the year-to-date assaults are up compared to last year.
I just noticed these two today. All these numbers on the year to date for 2023 are wrong.
Okay. I
There's
just
something.
making sure, I wanted to make sure we wouldn't have
No,
a rash of assaults going on.
No. I noticed all these numbers on the right hand column. I don't know what happened. I don't know if they get
Major crimes created.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. I was like,
That was my
that's,
question too.
I know how to turn on the computer, but this programming thing is, I think, more Dana's. I'll get with her and we'll get this fixed somehow.
And
Because these numbers are
one more little minor detail in May on your arrest. I noticed under the arrest, it says total arrests are 0.
For May.
May, I believe it was May, correct? Total arrests are 0, so 2 of them were adults.
No.
Okay.
See, something's going on with this program.
I
There
think
were 3 arrests in May, and they were all adults.
Okay. Well, there's 1 month where there's 0 arrests and it lists 2 of them were adults, even though there was 0 arrests. And I believe I had asked you that month, if we really got arrests, and you said yes, we did. And I know some minor detail, but I know minor details can compound big
Well,
deals.
just to let you know, on mine, it shows 0 for everything on this copy. But it shows 2 cases, 2 cases filed.
If we can get just Excel help.
Absolutely, there we go. Yeah, that's month of May. It says individuals arrested 0. 3 of them were adults. I'm not trying to pick on you. I just, I get clear. Details matter, I believe. And I think we just need to clean it up. Please next one, I got that.
I will get that to everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, get them payment out.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Get them payment out.
Exactly. My 8-year-old.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I am striking item number 3. And that was just executive session. There's no need to review that. And so we have the minutes from both of them from July 9th.
And I do have a clarification on number 2, item number 2, on under old business number 1.
Okay.
Confuse myself because I believe I own the property now that I.
Okay.
Very small. It was small, but big.
What page?
Business, page number 5, old business number 1. Confuse myself. It says due to owning property, just confuse myself because my family is.
Yeah.
Not the red.
Clarification.
Okay, good catch.
I also have an edit on that one, number 11 under new business. The motion to reappoint the CMAT committee members, there was 2 other pieces to it. So it was change the method of appointment to council at large, change the terms to 3 years, term lengths, and then also reappoint.
No.
Got it? Okay. Any more changes? I'll take a motion.
A motion that we pass consent agenda items number 1 and 2.
As amended.
As amended.
There's a second.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, Candy, in favor? Okay, unanimous. Very good. Thank you so much. Moving on. New business. We have 5 in a row related to Texas Water Development Board project. So who's presenting that? You weren't?
I think the bond council is going to go ahead and discuss that for item 1 and 2.
Okay, fine. Cool.
Steve, you want to do that?
I'm glad to start.
Now, item number 1 is the possible action on approval of TWPB project 62938.
Is this the approval of the
Resolution 6101 and 2. The reformation, the fiscal forgiveness agreement. And then
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Steve Perry with DA Davidson. You probably met my colleague Greg Cunningham, who retired about 6 months ago, but he and I have worked together on accounts together. I represent Lincoln County and some other cities too. So this first item approves a number of agreements that are necessary to make this financing with the Texas Water Development Board work. Principally among those is the principal forgiveness agreement. That is the portion of the 3.9 million roughly that's forgivable. So that's a source of funds. It's roughly $513,000. You'll use that for project costs, cost of issuance, those sorts of things, and don't have to pay it back. So that's ideal. Working with the water board takes time, but I've got a little information here. I'll share with you in a minute. Interest rates are extremely low, and you get a portion of this that you don't have to pay back. So you also enter into an escrow agreement. Any funds that you borrow that you don't use immediately go into escrow with a bank that holds those in trust on your behalf.
Hello, Angela, I'm the McCall District Block Council. Pleasure to see you all. I'll touch base more on number 2 with regards to the ordinance itself. Oh, okay. Okay, sure. So, in your agenda packet, you should have an ordinance, and that is essentially the contract between you and the Texas Water Development Board. It lays out interest rates, when principal and interest amounts are due. It also states provisions the city has to abide by in order for it to avail itself of the tax exemption interest that's related to this issuance. And it lays out state and federal requirements that you all must abide by. As far as the ordinance itself, the next step is, of course, if you decide to proceed with it, the next step would be for us to send all of the documents to the Attorney General's office for their approval, just to make sure everything completed and conforming with the law. And the Texas Water Development Board has also already reviewed the ordinance with updated numbers that reflect the interest rates that we received last week. So,
If I could, I have a little information on that, if you won't mind asking me for, please.
And do you have a copy of the agenda there in front of you? Because there's 5 items in a row. Can you get a sort of an overview and how it breaks down so we don't just score in one at a time?
Sure. So the first we talked about, the second is considering the ordinance authorizing the issuance. That will be sold to the water board. And then after that, you have to go through a procurement process because there are federal funds involved to make the subsidy. So you had to go back and re-procure engineering, myself and your fund council. So that would be the next 3 items.
So just, this is the ordinance that she was talking about.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the second
here was just,
I thought you might want to see some of the terms and the traits that we received. Typically, I would have more information at this point, but from here, there are a number of steps. Working with water board, there's a very detailed process. So we have to go and get an outlay report, show us the amounts of money that we expect to spend at closing, which will be September 12th. Basically what I have are the interest rates and payments on the certificates. On the front page, you see 3.39 million certificates. That's the actual amount of what I would consider to be debt. Those are certificates of obligation, and $513,000 in principal forgiveness. And then in miniature font on the third page are the interest rates. Those interest rates are subsidized by the 35%. So what we do last week is the water board sent me we call it scale of interest rates. Every year has a different interest rate. The longer you go out traditionally, the higher the interest rate is. And then I come up with a blended set of payments. You'll notice that the first year of maturity is not until the year 2028. So we have interest only until that point in time. Average interest rate, what we call true interest cost, 2.77%, which is well below market. If we were to go out and sell certificates again, that rate would be in the low to mid 4% range. This is 2.77%. So it's a tremendous deal in addition to getting $500,000 loan forgiveness.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
In the $500,000 of loan forgiveness, can we use that to pay the origination fee that we have to pay in closing?
You have an origination fee, and right now they have it under the 3.39 million.
Mhm.
So you could use, just kind of split it between the two. So it's 2% origination fee.
Right.
And we have that being paid out of 3.39 million right now. Okay. So then it just, frees up that percentage on the other side. So we look at it.
And we didn't have to come up with that extra. That's
Correct. That's correct.
I read.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and so no out-of-pocket cost. These numbers were constructed so that there would be enough money to pay everybody at closing with no out-of-pocket cost of insurance. So that's a high-level overview of that. And then, like I said, the next 3 items really are insurance, professional services, We've been working on this, now for a number of months, years even, but, have to go back and rehire the folks that are with us.
If I have any more questions,
Yeah, just assuming you can change any of these forms, I mean, they're kind of state forms and this is the way they.
Not a whole lot of good negotiation.
I didn't think so.
The water board kind of tells you how to. make
Yeah,
it
that's
done.
fine.
The council's aware, we've reviewed all these documents as well and recommend approval of these documents. As you mentioned, there's not much room for negotiation. There's dictation at the federal and state level on these terms, but the advantage of these is sort of suggests that you might consider items 1 and 2 simultaneously and approve them if you wish. And then I think Lauren is going to take up a presentation of the 3 related procurements because there's individual firms that are covered in each of those items that you need to see and act on.
I do have a few questions, actually. Can we put stipulation limits on this? 'Cause let me put this in perspective, what I've had the public come to me at. Not everybody out there is exactly comfortable with Bobby Mack and Tab 5 having an open credit card ready to go around and spend money on whatever. That's a very real concern amongst people. I know that this method of funding is used a lot. I understand the projects we have listed need to be done. I have no argument with that. The thing I kind of worry about is everything we don't have listed there. If there's money left over when these projects are done, I don't like the idea of being able to go use the rest of the money on other pet projects or whatever we decide it needs to be used on there. I understand the line of credit value and all that. This is a large chunk of money. There's a lot of work that got put into this issue. I'm absolutely fine with moving forward and fixing what this money is meant to use. I don't like the idea of using any of this money on anything outside of the scope of work. What is listed here.
I don't think
so,
you can.
for
No,
the,
but-
yeah, for this thing,
Right.
you can't, I mean, it has to be used on critical water infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah, it has.
But let's say we have other critical water
Yeah,
infrastructure.
it
that
can't go
needs
beyond
work.
those parameters.
Projects.
Exactly.
They're named projects. You
Name
can't
projects
even
here.
move them.
I just want to
without
make sure
permission.
that I'm being
And
clear
all the
on
projects will go out to bid.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can.
If I can add,
But this, but, okay.
it has to be those 3 projects specifically. If there's any money left over, we'll have to go back to the water board and see what they would want to spend it on. I don't think that's going to happen, but those only 3 named projects. And for example, if we want to take that 3rd project and sub it out, we have to go to the water boards. We can't just do what we want. Those 3 specific items got approved by them and vetted. And if we want to do any changes, we have to go back to the board and get an amendment.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And then there's federal money in there too.
Ask a
Yes, ma'am.
clarifying question on your clarification. And we have those 3 projects only. Can those be amended on other projects? She's saying no, and you're saying yes.
Yes, they
Water,
can.
it has to be water, and it has to be.
But we have, regardless, we have to go back to the board.
Yes.
Correct. With an amendment, and it dovetails into my other question. One of those projects is about 2 miles of Cielo Springs Drive. That seems like that's the biggest part of this project or something, one of it. And they're not in the city, is that correct?
That's correct.
So I'm just not sure. You could certainly pretend to be part of the city. I'll talk to that. That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, we were saddled with that development. It's not properly, the water lines are just under the pavement, they're not vetted right, so it's always. I assume this will move it off the road.
I understand.
They are off the road. They're sitting on rock.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions about why would such a large park go something outside of the city limits. And I recall that the obligation, I believe we're obligated to maintain that water system. Is that correct?
We are. We are.
So
Are they paying the elevated rate for being outside of the city limit?
Yes.
They're paying
I think the rate order was an additional $17 per month. Yeah, I think that was the
They had,
base
they
rate.
had an additional rate.
I think there's an additional rate, and I'm not,
Yeah, it used to be just 150%, 50% additional water rate.
changed the rate order when we raised Kiki stuff. So that got, I mean, I have to look at it and send it to council, but there is an additional fee for anybody outside the city, but we're not treating them any different than anybody else outside the city. Outside the
It's
city.
kind of clear to me that I think as a council, as a city, we don't communicate enough with the citizenry here about what's going on with their money. So I want to make sure we get those questions answered when they say, why are we doing this out of the city? We're somewhat obligated. In addition, it takes a little sting out of their paying an elevated rate that the people in the city are paying. And unfortunately, we're obligated to maintain that system. Is that a fair synopsis?
Well, I think you can answer it this way. Once you give someone water, whether they're outside the city or inside the city, you're obligated to keep on providing them water. So years ago, when we gave those property, those homes water, we probably shouldn't have, but when we did, now we're obligated.
And in 2022, you passed an ordinance that will never permit that again. If you want water outside the city limits, ordinances now require annexation. Unfortunately, this was out of the barn already.
But just to clarify it too, just so we know, the water system we're speaking of in Cielo Springs currently is costing us quite a bit of money to
It's the
maintain.
biggest leader.
Yeah.
We lose a lot of water. It's a lot. How much do we, time wise, I know it's a big drain.
As far as,
The repairs out there.
Yeah.
Repairs and the amount of maintenance. it
yeah,
takes to keep the
when we have a
system
main break out there, it's usually about 12 hours to repair it.
up. So in a
And it
sense,
seems to happen on weekends and holidays.
fixing it through time will hopefully, the money we save through the repairs will pay for the repair you want.
And that's why it was originally put on this, because of all the exuberant money going to the leak repairs. So,
I try to think of it as water working fix it, then it's going to become into Blanco.
Amen.
So to address the other two projects, if you don't mind what we're talking about. So one is 9th Street. I know that's where it's like right under the pavement, right?
yes, that was to, once we get bids and look into that, we can probably consider moving it out of the street. We'll look at that when the time comes. And then the Palomino water line.
I remember there was a break on 9th Street. Was it last year? They were doing the.
Yeah, so.
You had to open the fire hydrant and drain the system to fix it.
Yeah, so what happened is none of the valves on that corner worked and all the taps come off the top of the water line.
Yeah.
So whenever they ground it down, they caught the top of the water tap and water went up.
Okay, and then the other one is Palomino, but. Yeah. Okay.
It was our three biggest water leaks, water usage issues is why these three projects got picked.
The
Blake's taking more.
No, unfortunately. We tried several times. No.
So, the city attorney is recommending we take up number 1 and 2 at the same time. If there's no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah.
What session?
I'll move that we move on items number 1 and 2, consideration, discussion, of the resolution of PWB project 62938, and take action on approval through the ordinance authorizing the issuance of $3.390 billion for the city of Blanco, Texas, combination tax and surplus revenue certificates of obligation. Series 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Very good. Thank you. Moving on, number 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So this, items 3, 4, and 5 are related, but we'll take them separately. As part of this process, you also have to procure three different entities, one being Engineering Services Administration, the other one being bond counsel, and the financial advisor. That's all part of this project for the three water.
Does this have to be done tonight?
Yes, sir. Well, I believe it does. Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
you start work on it.
So we have staff received packets for the engineering, and there were two people that had two engineering services that responded to this RFQ, one being Ardura and the other being KSA Engineers. When looking at this, the real reason for looking at Ardura as the one that is better suited for this community is because of their knowledge of the water lines, the sewer lines, understanding how to work with staff, understanding what the community wants, and really just have a better understanding than the other firms. So we go through this, and there's different things they'll ask for. We read through it, we'll take a look at staff, their staff, we look at their expertise. But the real reason for actually selecting Ardura would be their understanding of this. Questions about that's the recommendation.
First, regardless of who we choose, I'd like to echo Councilman Moses' concerns, and particularly Ardura has a bit of a reputation, fairly or not earned, I couldn't speak to, of overcharging and being very aggressive with their invoicing. I can vouch for it. And like our city secretary found a way, if they had to do a task order system instead of just a blanket invoice, we've saved $140,000, I understand it. Since that was put in place, or approximately that. So whichever, I think it's important, I want to make sure we have some sort of control over those invoices. And there, we had $391,000 for engineering services. I'm assuming that covers their bit. And I just want to give them a blanket to spend that money. Unless it's approved, then it's a fair price for working. And I'll just finish up with one question. What was the cost, what was the price of the other engineering firm?
This was an RFQ, not an RFP.
I understand.
So
This is an estimated price then.
this is an estimated price of what the engineering would take, and this is as per Texas Water Development Board. So what I want to mention here is that you're talking about a grant and a program set up by the Water Development Board. They're looking at the specific costs already. What you're talking about is a different issue, which is part of city engineer, part of that. So there's really more specific. This is what the cost is going to be for either company. So that question is,
I understand.
which firm is that?
No, the RFQ has answered that question, certainly. So that's fine, as long as this is not a climate change and we've got some standard operating approvals for whatever airports they can. So,
Yeah, I didn't have one that didn't that Ardura either. I didn't have one that doesn't even to that Ardura.
Okay.
But they do know that.
So item number 3, any more discussion? You said it has to be done because.
Yes, I recommend that it be done. Of course, we're giving the city admin authority to negotiate and proceed with them. If he has any concerns, he can come back to you and revisit the issue. This is an RFQ, so it's not like it's set in stone in that sense.
Okay.
So,
I would assume we have some sort of recourse if we decide we want to change engineering firms halfway through this.
Any more discussion? I'll entertain a motion. You want to move that? Okay, move for pass number 3. Is there a second? Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Okay. Next, number 4. This is bond council.
This is for bond council, city received, basically two bond council, packets, Paul Parkhurst and Portland LP, who met today. We've also gotten, some discussion, with Angel Ottawa last month about the COs, and then, North Rose Fulbright went through that. It's really about the familiarity. Both firms are good, as far as the package submitted, but, the familiarity that they have with our community and our projects, would make Paul Parker's important, the recommendation was that.
The $32,500 cost.
Yes, sir.
These are both great firms, but Bart Fowler and Zadila are extremely familiar with your community. Have been involved in every financing I've seen since I've been here, probably 2.5 years. But anyway.
Thank you. Else? There a motion?
That's a flat 32.5.
That's what's in the right up. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll move we approve bond council as recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All righty. Number 5.
Well, the good news on this, DA Davidson is the only one that submitted a request. So it's either yes or no, but actually, we've been working with Craig and then later on Steve Perry for many years, probably over 10. But I've been working with Steve for about a year, and he's provided any information we asked for, and they're very good at getting back to us right away. So the recommendation is to approve DA Davidson for financial costs.
Motion.
How much you see?
58.
58,000.
58,500.
You're the wrong one at work.
And that's throughout the long-term project.
Yes, sir.
Spread over several years.
Well, it's gonna take, I don't know how long it will take, but a few years, sure.
There a motion?
I'll also move that we approve DA Davis.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor? All righty. Making it easy tonight. Thank you very much. Number 6, this is a pilot negotiation agreement. 1-year extension. Tim.
Council Tim Blakey, City Attorney. I really don't recommend action on this. This is an initial briefing on this matter. Next month, we'll bring it back for recommended action, but I wanted to start getting you all familiar with this issue. We have our wastewater plant out here. The city built the wastewater facility and acquired the land from the owner out there. There was an easement granted to go in and out of that facility. And the exchange that was made at the time, in the words of the deed, was that the owner the city disputes that notion, and there's an ongoing dispute between that landowner and the city about the scope of the rights available to that landowner to that effluent that's generated. As you may well know, there's a market now for effluent. It's an important resource to our city in the future and now. So what we did at the time, back in 2022, we entered into a pilot program because we wanted to understand this landowner wants to use effluent right now to irrigate their land. And be part of the irrigation program we use in spraying effluent instead of discharging it in the river. So, and they wanted to use it, and they use it now for growing crops and so forth. And they will give you better detail on that next month. But The city entered into an agreement with them, a pilot agreement, October 1 of 2022 for 2 years. Where we could measure the amount of effluent they were taking. Now, then there's an option to renew that kicks in. Now, as part of that agreement, we also entered what we call a tolling agreement, which said, tell you what, we're both going to our separate corners in the ring and we're not going to fight about this right now, but we preserve our rights to come back and fight about it later. Meanwhile, we get a better understanding of what are we fighting about? What is the total usage that may be used on that property? So we started that, and I will put this in on public website as well. I want each of you to see in the far right column in this document, you see Infomark's report on irrigation operations, and you will notice that we have data really only for part of 2023 and into 2024 so far. The landowner had difficulty getting set up. We were set up to go October 1, 2022 for the first year. It took a year for them to finally get to a point where they were ready to start actually irrigating. So in the right-hand column, you see here, and Damon will help me explain these numbers if you have questions. In the right-hand column, you see the actual irrigation that has occurred through that time period, from basically August 2023 through June of 2024. And so we are starting to gather information, but in fact, we only have 1 year of data so far. So next month, I'm going to come back to you with a proposal that you renew this agreement for another year. And I'm also going to come back to you with a request for funding to appraise the easement. Because we need to triangulate what is the value to the city and to the landowner on the easement and effluent. So you then can make decisions on how we ultimately might approach resolution of this dispute. So are there any questions here now tonight? I can also answer them tonight or later on.
Yes, a few little questions, maybe we can answer them. Now, the land that they allocate the effluent on, they own that land?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the application equipment that they use to apply that water, they own that equipment?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They do.
And,
they connect with us on and use their connectors. Don't know the technical terms, but inside their property, that's all their equipment and their irrigators and such.
so the city does not allocate any water to our own property. Everything that's applied through irrigation goes to their property alone.
No, we have our own separate irrigation fields.
Okay.
And you'll see in this report, this is an overall report. These numbers over here to the left, those are your operations out there as well.
Okay.
So field application, that's.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As a whole.
Correct.
Field application is the city's property. And then the other column is just what they're applying to their property.
The WWTP.
That's the wastewater treatment plant effluent. That's how much was discharged for the month.
Oh,
That's the WWTP, that's the total flow. And the field application is the portion of that number that's going on our own land, city land. And then you're going over to the far right column, that's the landowner's land.
Understood.
And the landowner's land is part of the city's 210 discharge or irrigation permit. And I have to submit reports every month to TCEQ how much they irrigated.
Yeah, that's a good point, by the way. That landowner irrigation program is approved specifically by permit by TCEQ. Yeah, so.
So do we get a fine or a hand cycle or whatever when they have a zero?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
And so someone else takes care of our fields. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, what about that particular, is that a totally separate deal from what we're going to be dealing with?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, and this overall situation, we talked about some of it in public. We talked about some legal issues in executive session. relating to our dear friend, Mr. Palmer's, whose property is adjoining there. There's been back and forth over the years with respect to irrigation on overspray in the past on that land. And then, of course, you have your own separate land. And now you add with this landowner's land, approximately 26 acres, of which roughly 15 acres are irrigable, which of course increases the capacity to keep water out of the river.
I thought it was interesting when we met with the, like, the Guadalupe GVRA, like a river authority, they asked us, please stuff all your effluent to the river. We want you to keep the river full. I thought that was interesting.
It's crazy.
Anyway, this is just, I guess, info briefing, and we'll come back with more detail, specifically more focused on trying to resolve this issue we have with this landowner, because they literally have a 1964 one-page deed that says all effluent in exchange for the easement. And of course, we know under law, the city can't give things away for free. They're not allowed to do that. They have to be for public purpose. So our position is that to the extent the value of the effluent exceeds the value of the easement, we can't be doing that. And so we'll be coming back on that next month.
It's going almost as much as treated water now. What I've seen.
It's a growing market. Any other questions? Thank you.
We're going to move on without action. Number 7, this is the well monitoring agreement with the Lakeville Pernalis Groundwater Conservation District.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is really more of a kind of cleanup item. Over the years, there was actually a well at the old Public Works barn, I guess you'd call it, on Cherry Street. And there's a well, and Pernalis Groundwater Conservation District has been monitoring that well for years. The reason why this has come up is I've been talking to
Ron Fiesler.
Ron Fiesler, there we go. Ron Fiesler had come back. I was a consultant for them for a couple of months before Eric came on board. And what they wanted to do really is have this agreement in place as an easement so they can go onto the property, monitor the well. It's an old well that isn't really active anymore. The city doesn't use, but they're still monitoring for.
They check the levels of the aquifer and where it's at. And so there was an old agreement with Ron Fiesler that he had with the city way back when. He retired. So the new guy, that he's just trying to cover your bases here and basically just make sure that entering in the property is okay with the city is what this is about.
They monitor that well.
Yeah. He just drops a level in it.
It's the $1, but it is.
The $1, yeah.
So it's just formalizing what they've been doing.
Yes, sir.
So the grants is just granting access, it's not.
Granting them access. Basically, they've always been doing that. They just want to make it efficient.
You guys got me eyes across some T's.
It's kind of for the waiver. Is there some group, do they sign some sort of waiver, so if they got hurt on the city property, would they sue the city?
Do you want them to add a waiver to
I mean,
that?
well, I don't know. I mean,
So I'll give you an instance of something that recently happened. Ron Fiesler's tape got stuck in the
Yes.
well, and they paid for the truck to come out, pull the pipe, do everything so he can get his tape out of there. So they take care of everything there.
Any more questions?
I mean, just little things, but so I noticed that we can terminate this, given 15 days notice, but it doesn't list the length of this agreement. So it's just in perpetuity. It's just.
Oh, it's just in perpetuity. They've been doing this forever.
Subject to termination.
Okay.
Subject to
So it's at will in your
Basically,
favor.
it's outlined.
It's a term, but You could wake up tomorrow and decide, forget it.
I think it has to change.
Okay. I would just say, as long as, city's liability, but you can have someone else do it. Don't have that at least not count it if you wanted to switch.
Yeah.
I would just say to Candy's point, I want to make sure we're not liable for any injuries or twisted ankles that may happen.
I think you should approve it subject to either as is whereas clause or a waiver. And we'll make sure that gets in there.
It had something, it has something in here. Grantor and grantee agree to hold harmless the other party against and for all liability claims and costs.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
They suffer.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I also move that we, enter into agreement, the new agreement.
Okay. There's a second. All in favor? All righty. Okay, number 8, Warren, this is request for removal from ETJ.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council. So I know the request is October 18th, 2023. I just got it a couple of months ago. This is a request to be outside of the ETJ, even though they're in the ETJ. We did a plat called Rocky Road Estates. The property is in between Rocky Road and Country Road. And Country Road, which is the lot C, which I put in yellow, is the lot that was basically touching the city limits line. It was across the street from the city limits line. And it is currently in our ETJ. The ETJ, as you know, is a half mile beyond city limits. So this is a request from
In Ulster.
it's in Boston. I think just bought the lot. I think it was done by the person. It was done, wow, it was done a couple of years ago. And I know for a fact there's got one building on there, wants to put another building on there, and my comment to him was, you can do anything you want, we're not permitting it. But the only difference for the developer would be that out in the county, he doesn't have to follow the water quality ordinance. He would have to follow a water quality ordinance here. And that's probably the only thing. One of my questions was why do you want this? I didn't. And that's what I heard as well. I just want to be outside of the ETJ.
Well, if it was outside the ETJ, as I understand, he wouldn't have to follow the UDC at all.
No,
He may be compliant now, but whatever he might do in the future, he has no rules. He has to follow like other properties in the ETJ.
And I'm looking at the map. He's surrounded on two sides by city. He's adjacent. He's not like
He's
out
right
there half
behind the
mile.
middle school.
Yeah, he's right. He
Yes.
thumbs up city on two sides.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. Yes, sir.
And but
There'll be a little donut, there'll be a little hole or whatever. you want to call it.
and without having to follow the EDC, he can pretty much do no setbacks, nothing. Just do whatever he wants. Just right.
Well, he doesn't have to follow the UDC being the ETJ, right?
He
Only
doesn't.
portion.
Yeah,
There's some provisions you have to, but, folks, this is mandatory. Under the new law that was passed by the legislature last session, ETJ, in fact, will pass the 30 days. I recommend approval. There's no discretion. It needs to be released. Now, not to be confused with annexation, disannexation, all that. This is request for removal from the ETJ. And there's litigation brewing right now among multiple cities trying to stop this.
Do you have that language with you?
I don't have it with me, no, but I can confirm it.
You mean the language that says it's mandatory? I would like to certainly table it till another opinion. Yes, we have to agree. What's the purpose of the ETJ?
You can certainly table it. I'm just saying that it's,
Do we just dissolve the ETJ altogether? Is that
No, sir.
mandatory also?
no, sir. No, sir.
Why is this?
We're talking about landowner, the legislature just passed a law this last session that allows landowners to opt out of the ETJ of a general law city. That's what we're talking about here.
So 100% of our landowners in the ETJ could opt out.
Could. Good. Yes, sir.
My understanding was the ETJ was really when cities could annex. It was a way to sort of So.
Right, and it doesn't eliminate the ETJ and the other areas that are still within the ETJ.
Until they ask.
Correct. It's not automatic. This is not automatic that this happens.
It's automatic that we can't say no. That's correct. I would like a second opinion.
That's challenged, yeah, that's challenged, right?
Well, here's the situation as it sits right now legally. There's a large group of cities that have taken this law up and it's pending in trial as we speak. And there is a difference of opinion with respect to, among some city attorneys, to either abide by the request or not. If you don't abide by the request, the problem is, in my view, that you open yourself up for an argument from the landowner that you're not currently complying with the law. That's the reason I say, perhaps too emphatically, that it's mandatory. Of course, that's my recommendation.
But if we do approve it, we're opening ourselves up to dozens of landowners. I don't want to follow any rules either.
Correct.
And we're not allowed to annex unless it's voluntary. So I think that's just damaging to every small town in Texas. And I'm glad it's being challenged. So
Yes, sir.
I would certainly at the very least propose that we table this for now.
That's fine.
Let me ask you a question. Are those under the same time limit like this annexation? You said it'll pass 30 days.
30 days.
We have to make a decision within 60 days or the repercussion is
So-
what? We
Well-
have nothing for it.
This annexation is a whole different.
I know, but I'm saying we have 60 days to make a decision.
There's-
on this, correct?
It's 30 days on this.
This is dated, what, 10 months ago?
Well, that's what he said to me. It didn't come 10 months ago.
Okay, how long ago did you receive it?
I saw it 2 months ago.
2 months ago. And we had 30 days at that time, and we're receiving now.
We have not, nobody is bringing a lawsuit or anything of the sort. I don't have an objection. I'm giving you my recommendation that you go ahead and authorize the withdrawal. I think it's fine for you to table it as well.
I feel strong because I'm leaning towards tabling to see how this lawsuit play out, at least for 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, what's the risk if we table it? I mean, it's
already been.
Landowner take some action.
He might object.
We're not being hostile. We just want to look at it a little more.
Yeah, that's fine.
If I feel strongly, otherwise I'm going to table it. Okay. Well, we're going to table this. We're going to move on. Okay. Now we're going to number 9. Okay. This is, I asked for it to be put on the agenda with the water plants hopefully on the home stretch. We've got issues with our water impoundment. A lot of the lakes that we keep our water in filled up with silt and gravel. And some of the dams are needing attention. There's also the prior city administrator and utility director put together and worked on a plan for potential other ways to impound water over there. I just think it's a good idea for the CMAC committee to look into that and come back with some action items because there are dams that need repair. And when that comes back to our primary water source, we'll make sure we catch them all we can and not lose it.
We have to first make sure that we found it.
Okay.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
So, yeah, it needs a deep dive, but the CMAC committee is
I like, because I already talked to. Feel about it.
when it comes time to, if we need to repair or enhance them, there should be grant money for that. And dredging and all that. Kenny, you spent a long time studying with anything else that I'm not addressing? Okay, so I just I'd like to direct CMAC to pick up the water impoundment issue, look at our dams, look at other options, and see how we can maximize that.
Does that require action of the council to direct them to do that?
I don't know that does it require action of the council to direct them to do that?
They can authorize you, I think, just in consensus. that you-
Consensus?
Yeah,
Okay.
bring that to them.
Real good, okay, very good. Losing a dam and losing our water is gonna cost us a lot of maintenance. And, okay, very good. Thank you. Number 10. voluntary annexation of the city wastewater treatment plant property. Brought this up a few months back before the bypass is announced, wherever it is. We own like 90-some acres over there. Around the sewer treatment plant. It's not part of the city. It's not annexed for some reason. And, it's just paperwork to do that, right, Tim?
Well, there are some hearings that have to notices and hearings, so I look at this as, authorization to proceed with the process, which still has to occur. So if you give us that authorization, then we'll focus upon it. There's only the land is contiguous to the city, so that requirement is met. I'm a little unclear on what portion of it, if any, is outside the ETJ, which is a problem potentially. So we'll research that if you give us also authorization to proceed.
Okay. Is there a reason not to annex that?
I'm sorry?
Is there a reason not to annex the land that we own that's contiguous?
I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't. It's your property and you own it, and it's contiguous to your current city limits.
Why don't they be done?
If
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So all the liability and so forth associated with that land is already there. We own it.
Yeah.
So there isn't really any difference in terms of, there is a difference in terms of potentially extending your own ETJ, number one. And number two, whatever may happen to that property somewhere down the future where it's used for other purposes, it may have some other value to you. So I recommend that you give us direction to proceed.
The questions not requiring action from us.
Or not.
I would,
Yes.
well, it doesn't formally require action, but I think it would be,
I move that we investigate process for annexing a contiguous property we own.
Initiate.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Ryan abstained. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank
You
you.
want the no button?
No, I don't need no button.
Moving on, this is not an action item necessarily, but it's something we need to start the conversation. I had asked Brandon Carlson to give a presentation, but his schedule didn't work out. And it's not a secret, the Red Bud has been, got approval in 2021, right, on the concept plan.
For the COA, for certificate of appropriateness.
They're pulling permits now. The lumberyard behind Red Bud there is going to become a beer garden concert venue. They're saying 6 to 18 months, depending on factors, but at that point in time, they plan to have 2 concerts a week as a baseline, Friday and Saturday. Minimum, they say 300 to 400 people, maximum 700 people, every Friday, every Saturday night, here on out. They, being in the historic district, they don't have to worry about parking. That's anywhere from 200 to 300 to 400 cars every Friday, every Saturday night with the entrance on the square. The other day, there was Cars and Coffee over there by the new feed store. There are 30 cars on Sunday morning, drinking coffee, and people were complaining. So within 6 to 18 months, we're going to have effectively a Lavender Festival every weekend in that neighborhood as far as cars. And the city needs to get in front of that. And we need to start exploring options for that. So I don't know if there's any action at this point. I think our committees should start, if they're appropriate, looking into that.
I think there's gonna be 2 things that's gonna happen there. Number one, it's probably next week or 2, that the plans will start getting approved. There's still a few things that they're resolving on our end, but beyond that, we will be starting to look at parking, talk to different council members. We're gonna talk to CMAC. The city may have to do some paving of some right of way to see if we can do some parallel parking, head-in parking. But I do agree there's going to be, I think Redbud will also want to resolve this issue as well. So have to be a partnership with different entities to make sure that we accommodate the partner there.
Absolutely. They're not turning blind eye to it. It's just not legal. They never have to because they're in a historic district. Anybody else can have to put it.
We're also trying to figure out how big the scope is. So, they don't know if it's going to be $1 million project or a $3 million project. So they're still trying to figure out everything that they have plans.
Yeah, and with pipe repairs on 9th Street and all that, we have 200, 300, 400 cars prowling in the neighborhood 2 nights a week looking for parking. We should probably get in front of that and whatever paving or whatever pipes need to be done. We can do it before then. I think it's wise.
I think it would be a good idea to, like Warren mentioned, pave the sides of the streets to have public street parking, just like we have here in the square. Our UDC does say that the historic district has to coordinate with the city secretary to allow for off-site parking or fee in lieu. So
fee in lieu.
So
So we're
maybe they
going
can
to
work
look,
partnership.
you mentioned that, we're going to look and see what responsibility they have.
No.
I think there's caution of the business, except for the grand opening. I've been in that business enough to know that the Lavender Festival every weekend is probably absolute worst case scenario. That's thousands of people. They'll be lucky to have,
Well, for that
to meet their business model and have a minimum of 300. That's a pretty darn good crowd on every show. So I just don't want to cause too much angst to the community. It's just going to explode into thousands of people every single weekend.
Yeah.
Now, that'd be a happy problem to have, certainly for the business owner.
We just don't know when or how often, and we know that it's, they said they're not gonna, if they don't get 300 to 400, it's not.
If we have 50 cars, it's going to be a good one.
And we do have the parking down here south of the square, so I think if they or we could put a sidewalk we already have the sidewalk up to Fifth, if we could connect it over with extra street parking up there and maybe better signage marking the city parking down south of the square. Because all that behind the churches, I believe, is city
It's church,
city
right?
parking.
That's that church park, it looks like church park.
Right, but it's actually city parking. So if we mark that better and add signage or something to help.
Yeah, I just encourage everybody to pull out a map, start driving around a little bit, look around, see what ideas we can regroup and.
We do have some options to add some parking.
Yeah, so like Swanton Street is very wide compared to like 6 streets and it could be
If we
extended
do,
curb to
like,
curb.
Yeah, if we extend copy what's here and put it down.
There's also just east of Pecan, north here, it drops down to a big flat floodplain. That's flat and undeveloped that potentially we could do something there too. And like the library parking lot goes down.
I was gonna say, the
to that.
library.
Yeah, no,
Makes
their
sense.
land, when you go to their little parking lot there, the gravel one, it drops down and it's just flat all the way to the creek. Yeah, and there's,
Right.
yeah. But that's when I'm driving around looking at maps, that's the only place I can find that might be able to hold a bunch of cars that we don't, sit nearby. But yeah, just looking around, wanted to start the conversation. Okay. Moving on, old business number 1. Approval of HTO Analytics for customer portal plan. Part of the new metering system.
Do you want to take that since you talked to them today or you talked to them last week?
I took the questions that council asked, at the last meeting and I emailed Jim Brown with H2 Analytics. And then he responded back with answers and I emailed that out to all of council.
Yeah, there was one bakery I didn't find out. I know he said that if we want to blast to the customers, if we out of city expense, that would be our choice. What I didn't get an answer for is if the individual customer settings, if they have a hobby, they don't know how much water they use every hour, and it actually gives them the ability to text every hour, which costs us 20, 30, 40, $50 a month. Now, I think we should be able to control that cost by.
He said there was a cap, didn't he say there was a cap in there?
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the individual users, individual residents.
I think the cost is only when the city blasts out a message. Because he said like most of them, it's like an average of $25 a month for the other cities that are using it.
But if that was Yeah, and so if you could also confirm, I would just suggest you also confirm that we're not subject to our users raising our costs because they check it every 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my question too.
Who did you make the presentation to? Anyone? Did you make a presentation to anyone? Did I miss them?
We had a Zoom meeting with them.
We did have a Zoom meeting.
And this is just part of meters that they're already installing. This is
That's
the
correct.
system needed to interface.
This is just a customer portal, as really this is actually a good thing. I mean, so people check, every few days or so. I don't think there's an idea that you're checking every 10 minutes. So that's just the idea, is it's a customer interface.
So that value add to the new system, not part of the system to make it work.
Yes, it's a value add.
So this also notifies them like if they have exceeded usage and stuff like that too, right?
I believe so. I think also, yeah, that would mean that you might have a leak.
Yeah, so if they use more water than normal, it'll shoot them a text or an email or something and
What if they don't have it? What if they don't know what's happening? Or if they don't have a computer?
They can opt out if they don't want to participate, they can opt out.
Yeah. I asked a few folks and they said.
Yes.
They're about this time. Sent the contract back to me. and
I think the system's out there for whoever wants to use it, and if they don't use it, then they
They're
don't
not
use it.
charged for it. I mean, are they charged for it? Are we charged for it? That's what I don't understand, the charge.
It's just a one.
I think that's the
Customer charge for it?
Yeah, I don't understand who's getting charged for what. I have a simple mind.
No, that's like his response was anything that the city initiates, obviously we would be charged for, but I don't think he spoke to what if the consumer signs up and wants text.
Like I said,
I didn't
that's
see
the
that.
city thing.
Because
That's
I
that cost
was
on and on.
It sounds like there ought to be an app with add-ons, with inside app, add-ons.
Will the new system work without this?
Yes.
Yes.
This is, yes.
This is just an add-on. It's supposed to be a good feature.
Yeah.
This is
I don't think it is a good feature because it's only understand the cost, which I
I
think
just,
is
I
still.
just understand.
The new system will work without it, but the customers will not have a way. It's kind of like getting a new car without the navigation in it. It's like,
I think it's a good idea as long as we understand, the costs don't look out, in my opinion, don't look out of control by any means, but I just want to guard against cost overruns that we may not be expecting. I mean,
That's a
what
good
I can
point.
think is the 14 cents per text or whatever that was, that if somebody's doing 1,000 texts a month.
You can stop that.
Because they can't sleep.
Someone said he was a Fisher?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's what where it says there.
Yeah, did he come up here and let? Yeah. Fisher, Texas.
Yeah, but there's no objection to table this. We'd like to talk to the guy.
Yeah.
Can you have him come to the next meeting?
We'll have them come.
Okay.
We did, they have the recorded demo available. We can email it to us. It might help us visualize it in the meantime.
Good idea.
I agree with you should be here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna table that. I'm also gonna table the next one. We got a lot of applications at the last minute and haven't had a chance to call everybody, so I'm gonna table item number 2 regarding T. Number 3, the Blanco Library sign, the LED sign.
Lori doesn't think it's too clear.
Yes. I think, we had some communication back and forth with Miss Swenson and Miss Spivak at the library, and we revised the agreement that was in the packet, and I handed out to council the revisions, and I can go over them.
And I think there was also another revision since.
Yes, that is, yes, yes. So, if you go the first page under city responsibilities.
So you give them the sign and they get to use it. Its current state.
Yes, the city agrees to grandfather the variance to allow the electronic lighting of the current LED sign within the Blanco city limits. That's how number 2 reads. And then under the library responsibilities, we changed number 1 to read, the library agrees to take total responsibility for ownership of the LED sign. And then under number 5, under miscellaneous, number 5, the legal effects. This memorandum of understanding is a binding agreement between the parties and the city. The city waives its right to sovereign immunity. We just said this memorandum of understanding is a binding agreement between the parties. And we put period.
Just one comment, I think it's a minor issue that may take care of itself, but if the city's responsibility, they agree to grandfather the variance. And they still need to go to planning and zoning and get approval.
That was the last thing. We were gonna take that part out, right?
Yeah, so we're just telling them.
Planning and zoning would make an approval with the city, so they'd be coming back and say, well, we either don't approve this, and we override their approval, or codify the approval we already have.
Right.
But
It
But if
requires
they get a
the
new
process.
sign-
Variance is a process.
but the provision was to waive them in, but if they get a new sign, they gotta come back through you.
So we're tonight we're grandfathering them.
Correct.
They don't have to go
Okay.
into the and then if they get a new sign, that would have to come under. our-
Oh, so for a change in sign, then
Yeah.
number 2 should be if this changes from the existing sign.
Correct.
Okay.
That way you don't have to go to planning and zoning and come back early.
Yeah, but the city, oh yeah, sorry. So number 2, it would be the city agrees to grandfather the variance to allow for the current sign, and then if they got a new sign, they would have
Yeah,
to
number
come back.
2 on the next page, library responsibilities.
Got it.
If they change it.
Any changes to this.
Do we know the value of the sign? What are y'all reporting this as a value of an asset?
What currently doesn't work, so
Well, I don't know what the value, I really don't know, but, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't
What
work.
is it, Libby?
The grant that was given to the city to pay for that sign was 25,000.
thank you.
Thank you.
And it wasn't lighting compliant at the time that it was installed.
It was PEC that did it, right?
Yeah.
Well, they wanted to run up that electric bill.
It wasn't compliant.
Yeah.
The night sky ordinance was passed yet, but the Kelvin temperature on the current lighting is in compliance.
And then there was one more edit that we talked about last time. The city shall have the right to display 3 banners announcing city functions or matters for 2-week periods. Requests for display shall be made in writing if the request for display. The library should just do it no later than 2 weeks. So it's saying that the city gets to put messages up.
Thanks for acknowledging us.
Any more questions? More questions or comments?
Comments from the library? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, or I'll entertain a motion.
Do we need to, just all the things we said will be recorded and.
You have all the amendments.
As
amended,
yes.
Okay. I'll move that we approve this as them.
There's a second. Okay. All in favor? Look at that. Very good. Thank you so much. Next, number 4, this is Infomart contract.
Mayor, council, residents. So I'll make the presentation and then your questions of me or your questions of Infomart team that's here today. I want to give you a little bit of an explanation of how we came at this agreement and also how this happened. So before I got here in 2021, the months before that, there was some questions about transitioning from having a public works department that run by the city to having one that is actually run by a private company. And so, the first day I was actually here, which would have been January 11th, 2022, Infomark had been selected previously by the council as the one company that they would actually deal with. There were actually two at the time. And so that very first day that I was here, on that first month, January 11th, 2022, actually we did not get the deal done. So it took a month. And we went the whole month with Infomark kind of waiting in the wings and not getting, not having, basically just having a public works department without a public works director. And that was a rough month, at least it was for me. So I'll say that things didn't get done that needed to get done. And then once we did get Infomark on board, there was a learning curve. There's always going to be a learning curve when anyone takes something out of it. And so I will also say that when we put together this project, the numbers were put together by, just like ever. It was the council from 2021 with the administrator at that time, and then it got approved, and then we basically had Infomark here. And it's been great. They've done the things we wanted them to do to a point, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit. One of the things when there was discussions in 2021 and in early 2022, there was a discussion to have basically the company do everything that Public Works did before. And that was a conversation. In the contract, though, it made them basically just a utility operator with some basic things that were added. I think mowing lawns, some basic maintenance, and things like that. And over the years, it added a little bit to the scope. But what I think the disconnect has been is I think some people thought that we were getting something that we weren't. Now, I'll also
If
say,
I may, when it was before council to approve the contract, the council member asked, and the official answer was that Infomark would be buying pothole filling equipment and filling potholes. So that was when the council was considering about the contract. So I don't know who said that to them, but they were advised wrong because it clearly wasn't in the contract.
well, I don't know about the equipment. What I do remember hearing and when we try to look at stuff, we look at the minutes, we look at what we heard. I'm not gonna say equipment. They heard is we would do, basically Infomark would do what Public Works did before. That's the statement. And that's
Some presentations said potholes.
So the reason why we're dealing with this today is because we're starting to go through the budget. And I'm not usually one, staff's not usually one that looks at the past and says, what did we do? What shouldn't we done? What we're looking at really is, can we afford the contract as it currently sits? And so we had, Dana had looked at the numbers and we had a gap. And so we had a gap. I think we were talking at the time about $120,000. Money comes in, money comes out, kind of start looking at things. And so what we ended up doing, we ended up having a smaller gap than we thought, but we did meet with Infomark, and it was myself, the mayor, and Councilman Cardle, met with Damon and his supervisor, Dennis Bureau. They're gracious enough to meet with us and kind of go over some things. And what they agreed to do, what they talked about doing is to, and then I'm going to go through the additional scope, but what they agreed to do was at the same cost as we're currently paying, that they would provide an additional employee, and they look at some other things as well. Okay, I'm going to get through that in a minute. And that's what the mayor and that's what Dennis had talked about. And moving on, that was kind of how they started to look at this. Now, I will also say, as you get the final numbers for the enterprise, that represents, I'm going to tell you what that is. That would represent a cost savings to us of about $90,000, because we're actually looking at two specific things. They're going to hire an employee at no cost to us. So they'll get a seventh employee, and then they will also look at lowering administrative fee from 15% to 5%, which is that's $21,000. So if you're looking at at $69,000 employee with benefits plus 21, that gets you about 9. Now, there may be, I'm gonna talk about the additional scope that they're also going to do. And this is, I think I submitted to you, the contract adjustments. And I'll go ahead and just read, just a couple of them that we had kind of been talking to them on. So they'll look at, they will add a scope as mowing of city, with this extra person, mowing of city park, driveways and rear easements, identify the schedule 5 for limb trimming and said city park. So right now, when we need something, we get a service to trim some of the bigger trees, and this would actually help us within the right of ways. So right now we have a utility operator, but this actually would help us remove animal carcasses. Doesn't happen that often, but that would be helpful. Performance of maintenance for street sign, replace any street signs as necessary. They've actually been doing that, but it's good to have that as an offer. And this is a really important one to perform 15 customer service inspections per month. I've always maintained this is utility, and they should have been doing that, but it's good that that's covered. And then light street maintenance to include pothole repairs and concrete curb and sidewalk repairs. So as you're looking at, yes.
What are the customer inspections?
It's customer inspection of.
So when there's a new house built, a new customer moves in, the city requires a customer service inspection. Basically, we go out, walk through the house, make sure there's no potential contamination that could backflow into the water system. And the city gets a fee for that too. They're supposed to, so.
And the issue's always been, we require a fee that's not getting done, then we're asking for a fee that's not, some of them we're not performing the service. And so
It's 15 a reasonable number.
On average, we were doing 10 to 12, so that's just kind of where we were.
Okay, I mean, that's what is that a reasonable
Yeah,
number?
and there's some, yes. Because there's some efficiencies to be made there too. We were doing customer service inspections on move out, move ins at the apartments every time somebody left. I mean, you don't need to do them that often, so.
So I do have a question with the new meter system. Last year we were told that our employees check every meter every month. And without having to do that, it would seem to free up quite a bit of time.
So I would like to touch on that because I knew that was going to come up. Reading meters.
why don't you stand up here then?
So.
He's ready. He's over there.
Reading meters is something that we do, but it's what we do that's extra out of our time during the day. The city's infrastructure is so degraded that we spend the majority of our time fixing leaks. We average about 20 leaks a month. On top of that, we're doing taps, we do fill what potholes we can, we do change what street signs we can. There's a lot of things that's not in our contract that we do take care of. Basically what this is doing is it's allowing us to secure another employee to where we can do better, because I promise you, as I drive around this city and I see the trees overgrown and I see the potholes, my OCD drives me crazy because I want every ditch looking nice. I want every easement looking nice. That's just the way I operate. So what this contract's doing is it's securing down the wording and it's giving an amendment that will allow me to hire another employee. And you know, when we met with the mayor and Councilmember Cargill, you know, it was mentioned in that meeting that if we can do everything that was promised to them, that as long as we kept our fee the same, that was okay. And that's basically what we proposed to the city.
We were promised both of the equipment.
I don't remember that, but.
It's in the minutes.
Okay. So I just seen the video. I didn't see the minutes.
So that meeting,
Yes.
I was told it wasn't available.
It's online. You look for it.
Well, there was 2 meetings.
Okay, the one I seen was with Ed. That was on talking.
2022.
It might have been the first one.
Okay.
So, again, the reason why I brought this up as city administrator is because we couldn't afford the service. And this doesn't lower the price, but what this does is provide an additional service. It also means that what we can do, because we originally had, when we actually put together the budget, we had put together the budget for an extra employee on the city side with materials. So that had been materials of, I think it was $46,000, and then there had been the employee, and we had that at 7,000. So if we need to, we can always transfer that over. So it's a value. It's a value of $90,000. I'm not saying that's going to right all the wrongs, but what I am saying is that that makes it so that we can afford. And I think you've seen, I think the last enterprise number shows that we're above $5,000 without even doing the transfer. So that makes the affordability there. And it also brings the service of Infomart to more of a public works oriented project rather than just a utility operations. And again, not a perfect solution, but it's a solution that provides about $90,000. Maybe they think more than that, but that's the cost of it.
With the dedicated manpower, I assume it's gonna be more than just dumping cold mix in a pothole. I mean, it'd be.
No, that's what it would be.
It would be cold mix.
Mhm.
Well, I will say this, or I know we have a hot mix machine. It hasn't been working for 6 years, so that's about 3.5 years before they came on board.
So that machine is not really a hot mix machine. Basically what it is you put tar in the ground, you fill it up with the same thing they put on the road out here. My brain just went down, but no, it's the chip seal stuff that fills in a hole is basically what it is. That's what the pothole filling machine is.
I'd like to take a look at that machine.
Yeah, it's not the same one that the commissioners recommended we get.
No, it's not.
Actually, John Wood told me that was a freight machine. Because he was in my office the other day. He said, is it the big
just to
orange
make
one?
sure I
And I said,
understand
sure
it
is. I think that.
Do you anticipate having to take money from the general fund and move it to enterprise fund to cover this stuff?
So
Is that what I heard?
right now, we're not doing that. We're still above 25, we're $25,000, not in the hole. So in the black. So I don't anticipate we have to do that now. If there's a cost get larger than we think on the enterprise, we could do a transfer because I'll let you know that fixing streets is not an enterprise in the enterprise budget. Fixing streets should be the general fund budget. So that's how we're able to say that the $90,000 value basically makes it so that we can be in the black in the enterprise. Because right now we are above, but like I'm saying, we're still looking at stuff. But right now we actually don't need a transfer.
But technically, if we do this, the enterprise fund will technically not be standing on its own two feet. Do you anticipate that if we were to approve this with next year's revenue and next year's projected expenses within the market, are we gonna need a rate hike for a rate increase for the enterprise fund to stand alone? Do you anticipate?
So let me say this. I think we've anticipated there was 20% rate increase done in October 2020. I think there's definitely an increase that will happen sometime next year to keep up with the API that's going to go with materials and with Infomark every year. So eventually, but that's not because of the value provided by Infomark. That's only because things go up, and every year, I know CPI is 3.5%, but the API, which is what is Public Works, that seemed constant.
Okay, but then I thought that you were gonna be getting more revenue in because the new meters were gonna be reading the water better and,
We don't know how much, and it's supposed to,
We don't know how
it's paying for the new meters. We don't know what above that, but it's paying for the new meters.
So no one is going to be paying for the new meters. There probably will be additional revenue, but we don't know what that is yet. So getting back to what Councilmember Moses says, if there is some savings or added revenue, maybe we won't have to raise utility rates for a couple of years. Maybe that doesn't have to be done in 25. Right now, we don't know what that additional, I mean, we have the numbers of the PSI, but there is some, it's very conservative. There's going to be some extra additional funds. We don't know what they are. So.
Because I mean, I hate opening my water bill every month.
I don't know if the guy driving around with bags of cold mix dumping in the potholes is what we had in mind either.
Well, we actually had a plan of doing, well, I'll tell you what I had in mind. I had in mind that thought we would to get the additional employee, and that the city would either fix the current machine or stick on a CO, a certificate of obligation, a new machine, and then they would operate. And that was my understanding when
If we have the equipment one way or another.
So from what Ben told me, I'm not familiar with the equipment that's over there. I'm not a street guy.
If we had the same one the county uses. that's
I don't know what the county
Okay,
uses.
yeah.
But from what Ben told me, that machine over there took 2 guys. So I don't know what the county uses, but so we'll just have to figure that out.
I don't like to figure it out when it comes to a contract.
Well, I understand, but I don't have enough answers for you. But as far as, you know, what equipment y'all want to use, because what we're offering is 1 guy that I can dedicate. I've got a plan that I've provided Warren. I've got the city broken up into ways that we can manage it. And this was what we proposed.
And until we get the pipes, moved, all you need is cold mix.
And this is not a fix-all solution, but this is something that once we get on top of it, it will be better, because the way I've got it set up is we would just be making a revolution in our different city zones that I've got set up. So we're staying on top of it at all times instead of just trying to fill a hole when it's so big it's swallowing a car up.
He does, he has these great big blown up maps, and except he didn't have my help.
It's on there now, team.
Yeah. But, and in these zones, and he said, we do here, and we go, and then we start back over that. It made good sense.
I do want to be clear, Council, moving forward on that issue, just so we understand. I know a lot about road work. No matter what, whether it be 1 additional employee with him, or if we were to try to start our own department and do road work, anytime you're dealing with 1 person trying to do road work, slamming cold mix in a hole is your only option.
Yeah.
There is no other larger, better fix you can do with a 1-person crew, unfortunately. So everybody understands that there's not a better fix that will be accomplished with a 1-man crew, whether it be through them or if we establish it ourselves.
And right now, with the way the pipes, the infrastructure is underneath the ground, all we can do is cold mix.
Yeah.
Because unless we rip everything up and have caliche roads.
Well, and you could take the step to hot mix, which is a much higher step than cold mix and sticks together bill. But you have to order enough of it to where a 1-man crew is not going to put out a lot of hot mix.
Well, that's where the
We're
county,
back.
cooperating with the county, they said we would be able to coordinate with them, the materials, we have the same equipment. And so we'd be able to efficiency that way. So is there?
No, I mean, the staff recommendation is to approve this concept. Well, the staff recommendation is to amend it in our contract to include this new service and pull back the RFQ. And I will say this, this does 2 things. It makes the affordability there, and that was the original reason to do the RFQ. And then it also makes Infomart less of a just utility operator, more of a full service public works. So this accomplishes, I'll be perfect, this accomplishes the plan that we had set out to do. I think it's a good plan.
Does this amendment, I mean, I know it adds all of this, but does it change any of the other terms, such as the length of the contract? Does it add anything onto it? Does it change any of the affordability and
No,
the termination clauses and all that?
There's about 7.5 years left on the contract. It was a 10-year contract. It doesn't change.
It's not, that's still intact.
No, and then Dennis Bureau had said we could actually do that sooner rather than later. We don't have to wait till October. We can do that now or do that in September. And get started on continuing to take care of our roads.
I start looking for an employee once it's done.
What's been the response to the RFQ?
We've had several, I don't think we've gotten any yet, but we've had several people that were interested. I had gotten one email. I know, there's at least 3 people interested.
I think we go over to the public to hear what competitors have to say. Personally,
Well, so
I mean, went to the trouble of posting it. They went to the trouble of getting the information.
So Tim, do you want to explain a little bit about, I have a little issue with that because we're talking about legalities, we're talking about contract, we're currently under Infomark. Do you want to kind of?
I'd rather do that in the executive session. I had to do something.
We've already listed the executive session.
I think you've got good options, but I'd like to do that in executive session briefly.
Sure. Any other questions for now? Okay, well, conclude this and take it into executive session. Thank you. Number 5, this is regarding the 9.43 acres on 280 that's south of town. This is sitting there.
So Mayor, I don't think there's a lot to tell you. What I will, package shows that I did receive a comparative market analysis from Terry McKenzie. It's not really comprehensive in the sense that they couldn't find a lot of comps. I did talk to Eric, and I can't remember his last name, but with the Purnell's groundwater district. And the other side showed what wells have been in that area. It doesn't appear that there is a really good location for a well. You wouldn't really know until you get some professional out there, but based on the analysis that he sent us, that map, it doesn't appear there's a lot of, it could be, but I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah, I talked with him. He said it looked like a non-starter.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Well, there are already some test wells built in 4.
Yeah, there's 4 wells on the site.
They're looking for water.
It wasn't successful.
Was no success. Well, except for the one well that's there. Indiana.
What do you think is one monitor well there? The groundwater district monitors.
So what was your opinion of the comps?
She said she listed 600,000 for commercial, so that's a good place to start.
Isn't it?
Well, it has the, we have a light commercial for our, in our deed, don't we?
No.
But it reverts to
Reverse resident.
Reverse residential unless we use it for municipal water.
And there's no use of municipal water.
Yeah, that's right. It feels pretty low, and I mean, with the budget being where it's at, I don't know.
So we're putting sealed bids and saying minimum, seeing if somebody comes in, because somebody had said already writing totally, hey, you just, I don't buy it, don't have money. But should we put a crazy?
We don't have to accept the bids.
No.
Anecdotally, I was here at $900,000. I made it stretching on that.
I mean, looking at the comps that they gave, nothing's selling. Nothing's moving. I don't think it's a good time to sell. Just in general, I also don't really think we should sell this at all. I would like to look into potentially getting the deed restrictions removed. And I don't know a lot about how that works, but did say that there's an initial 20-year period and then there's 10-year periods where you can get the deed restriction removed if 75% of the, I guess, other people. So that comes
There's only
up.
one owner, right? We're the only owner.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Was it?
Well, it's in the neighborhood.
It's in a subdivision.
So we would
I
have to,
understand, but, well, I'm not sure I understand then
we would have to get 75% of the whole neighborhood.
oh, there's, oh.
But we could potentially negotiate.
I thought that deed you were showing me was just us. Oh,
But it
well-
comes open in 2027, so we could maybe they go a little quick more at third subdivision.
There's a provision that you had a 20-year restriction to begin with. Every 10 years thereafter, 3 months before the automatic click over. If you get more than that percentage to sign off, you can remove the restriction, the residential commercial restriction.
And right now with 281 going through there, and I would wait.
And hey, textile have based commercial prices, not residential.
If you kept it,
Yeah, okay.
and then the environmental, they would be going over one of our wells.
Yeah.
So those wells are important. All of a sudden, they have become really important.
Triple the va- I heard they tripled the value.
Off the wall question, I don't know if you can even answer it for me. One, let's say we were to sell that property and put all the cash back in the state. Is that enough money to positively affect our bond rating in the future?
Well, let me say this, I don't know the answer except for the fact that it would probably, if you sold, say you sold for 600,000, and instead of having about 40 days of operation expenses, for the general fund, you'd have, I think that's over 90, and then same thing with enterprise, so it would affect the health of your city. I don't know. What I'm thinking, we're gonna probably get somewhere around an E rating, so I don't know if it would actually, it would help us, but I don't know if it would actually help that rate. Maybe.
And I imagine there's gotta be a certain amount of time that money's gotta sit in those accounts before it goes.
Oh.
It would, but it could possibly help. But I'm advocating for selling the place on this gas.
Because the amount of money you have in reserve does matter for long run.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Anybody feel strongly one way or another about it? Thank you. Okay. Very good. That actually concludes the public. For now. Yeah, we're still action. Yeah. It's 8:11. We're going to retire into executive session. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stop recording. Because I have it all written down.
Okay, good. Andy has announced.
At first budget workshop,